Hello again, everyone. Edwin Leonard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about what I believe is the most toxic zodiac sign, and yes, it does apply and pertain to the sun, moon, and ascendant. Anyway, people, first thing up is that when we look at, according to WebMD.com, quote, a toxic person is anyone whose behavior adds negativity and upset in your life. Many times, people who are toxic are dealing with their own stresses and traumas. To do this, they act in ways that don't present them in the best light and usually upset others along the way, end quote. At least that's part of their definition for a toxic person. Now, first, I'm going to start out with Aries. Now, first off, for Aries, I would certainly say it can't be Aries because, Aries is not out to belittle someone. Yes, they could be a little bit, they could be abrasive at times, very outspoken and direct, but they are not out to make people feel bad about themselves, which could be, what toxic people may be notorious for doing to others. Again, they could be outspoken, but the remarks are generally not malicious and they're not intended to hurt somebody. Aries likes to speak their mind. They often can encourage others to lead in some way, shape, or form as well, and also to express courage and fortitude, pioneering ideas. They could be very inspirational. And they also can encourage others to stand up for themselves. And the thing about it is, and also taking action and enterprise, they will inspire others often to take action and start new beginnings without hesitation or procrastination and not dwell on what didn't work previously. They may even stand up for you if they believe somebody is doing something to have a detrimental effect on you, and that can include toxic people. Now, going to Taurus. Well, Taurus, is a feminine, and it can be a negative sign. Given that it's feminine, it is considered negative because it's a feminine sign. But Taurus, remember, can also have a very benign expression, and it would be hard pressed for me to think that they would be the most toxic of the zodiac signs. Taurus is often very docile and passive, and they're very peace loving. They are generally not ones that are going to do things like instigate problems for others and cause difficulties in their life, which is what toxic people, will often do. They're not going, Taurus is often dominated by their possessions, their acquisitions, their resources, and making money. And they're simply not really, they're not putting a lot of focus on causing difficulties and doing things that are detrimental to others. So I would say no to Taurus. Now going to Gemini. Well, as far as Gemini goes, Gemini can be, I mean, you could see them on the surface superficially as a viable candidate to be the most toxic zodiac sign, but I would say no to them as well. Gemini can be very mercurial and vacillating. They may go through periods where they may bring others down because they are so changeable and mercurial. It's really, but generally it won't be done intentionally for that reason. But the thing is, Gemini is not going to hold, malice or towards someone generally, or be vindictive towards someone. If anything hurtful that Gemini may do to somebody is often short-lived, and it's not going to be done often with, a lot of persistence. They will and say, and usually, generally, again, it will not be done with the persistence of somebody that is actually toxic. Now, Gemini will often go on to bigger and better things in their life, because they'll have other things that will take precedence over that. Gemini could also be very animated, vivacious, cheerful, and positive. They could be so restless and mobile that they simply don't have enough time to stay toxic toward anyone for a prolonged or protracted period. They could also be very sensitive to your mental needs, but sadly sometimes not always one's feelings. So it may come across that they're being hurtful to someone, but that's not always, most cases that is not what's happening. Now, the zodiac sign Cancer can certainly be a candidate. It can maybe a candidate for the most toxic zodiac sign, but I don't think it would be them. I mean, Cancer is very moody, temperamental, and fickle, but they also, sometimes they may say something derogatory to somebody if they're in a bad mood, but it's simply a reflection of them being in a negative mood. And the fact is, the zodiac sign Cancer can actually be very nurturing, sympathetic, and protective. That can include protecting others from detrimental and toxic people. Cancer does have to be careful though, because they could be very clingy and needy, and though it may not be malicious, they might be perceived as toxic to some people at times as a result of this. Cancer can be very vulnerable, and they might actually be victimized at times by people that are toxic, and they don't want other people to have that experience because they can feel others' pain. Um, Now, the thing about the next sign I'm going to talk about, Leo. Well, the thing about Leo is that they often have a very bright and sunny disposition. They could have very vibrant energy, and they could do, what they can to brighten others' lives, even people that can be very despondent, dejected, and melancholy. Now, toxic people, of course, are often negative, which Leo is not. People that are toxic can often drain others of their possessions and what they have. Now, Leo is actually very extravagant and also very magnanimous and generous. They could actually be the antithesis or opposite of this. Leo can also be very giving, and they might unfortunately be susceptible to people that are toxic. Leo sadly can actually sometimes be gullible due to the fact that they delude themselves into thinking that no one would actually use them. And the thing about it is, toxic people sadly may often capitalize on Leo's magnanimous and generous nature and exploit this generosity of Leo. But I would say no to Leo as far as being the most toxic zodiac sign. Now, another thing, going to Virgo. Well, Virgos are often very scrupulous and proper, and they will frequently go by the book and will at least try not to have that toxic effect on a person. Virgo, yes, they could be very negative, fault-finding, judgmental, and critical, but I don't think this is done, though, to have a negative impact on a person. They may frequently do this because they have this need to correct and edit others, and just want the person to do things in really scrupulously in the proper manner. It could simply be lifting something, you know, with the right technique. Excuse me, it could be putting in a sound card on a computer, putting a coil spring in a car. But the thing is, though, sometimes Virgo's criticism may make someone's self-esteem go down and and it may diminish because of this. The thing about it is, they and that energy can be a trait associated with someone toxic. But generally, though, I think Virgo's criticism is more constructive than it is destructive, and in many cases it won't bring the person down. So I don't think Virgo is the most toxic zodiac sign. Now, going to Libra. Well, Libra can be very charming and tactful and diplomatic. They're very refined. They often will not act in a way that could be, someone's detriment, which of course could be characteristic of toxic people. Now, Libra is usually very amiable and friendly and will do the best to accommodate others, and they are very pleasant and sociable. Now, they could also be the mediator or someone that will intervene in a situation that involves a toxic person and one that may be victimized by that same person. Now, Libras are often about peace and harmony and tranquility, and generally they're not going to be ones that are going to make others around them uncomfortable or do things to alienate them. Now, Libra, though, in a negative manifestation, can be a relationship disruptor, and they could cause dissension among others. But I think this can be very isolated and remote, though. Hold on a moment, people. Now, Scorpio, well, they certainly can be a viable candidate for the most toxic zodiac sign. They have some of the characteristics and traits of someone that could be toxic, such as being manipulative, bitter, which sometimes can be connected with maniacal jealousy, and being just tendency to be unhappy, and in the negative manifestation, even very sadistic. But I will reveal if it's them at the end of the video. Now, the next sign I want to talk about, Sagittarius. Well, they may ostensibly not be the most toxic zodiac sign because, for very obvious reasons, Sagittarius, of course, could be the perpetual or incorrigible optimist. They will often spread hope and goodwill to others. They could be the quintessential, I would say, motivational speaker, but they will also frequently encourage other people and try to get them to improve their life and expand their horizons. And they could be those human antidepressants of the zodiac. They are generally not ones to take joy in someone else's misery, which could be a characteristic of a toxic person. Now, they often will eradicate someone's misery instead, but at some point, remember that Sagittarius can also be, they could be very blunt and sometimes to the point of demoralizing others. It could be very blunt and downright tactless, and they will often, let you know if somebody is actually, victimizing you, that it might be from, a toxic person is affecting you to your detriment, and they will tell you very bluntly that you need to extricate yourself from that situation with that manner, and to really extricate yourself as quickly as possible from that person. Now, the next sign, Capricorn. Well, on the surface, one may think Capricorn may actually be the most toxic zodiac sign due to the depressive, negative, and pessimistic nature of the person. But what you need to remember is that Capricorn's needs and interests will often take precedence over others. They could be very involved in themselves. They're very capable of handling their own interests and activities, what they need to do. Toxic people can often drain others of their possessions and resources. I mean, keep in mind, Capricorn can usually get what they want through laborious efforts and hard work due to their ambitious nature. They are often dominated by their own career, their business matters, and they're just so ambitious. They simply, generally, I don't think are going to put the time in to actually be that kind of person that's going to have a toxic effect on somebody or be that toxic person. Now, the few that are, though, may take their negativity out on others or even bring someone's reputation and public image down, and even which might actually diminish that person's stature in life in some cases. If you get a very competitive Capricorn person, say in business, but they're using, but maybe that energy is expressed in some cases in a nefarious manner and trying to eliminate, say, business competition by bringing that other person down. But those cases, I would say, can be very isolated. Now, the next sign talk about Aquarius. Now, Aquarius can be the universal friend of the zodiac. They are often very amicable in their nature, and they may exude much friendliness toward others. Now, being an air sign, they are frequently cheerful and generally not angry or bitter, which could be characteristic of somebody that is toxic. Now, there could be people. They could be people also that are very selfless and altruistic. Aquarius can be involved in humanitarian activities, endeavors, and would be one of the ones, I would say, least likely to drain others of their possessions and resources. Now, Aquarius often will innovate and create new things as opposed to creating problems for someone else. There generally is no need for Aquarius for it to have others' possessions. Ironically, they often do not want to be possessed themselves by others or possessions, and they could frequently be very detached. So I would say no to Aquarius. But Now, going to Pisces. Now, many may see Pisces as the most toxic zodiac sign, largely because, the connection with the chemicals, drugs, and alcohol. They are ruled by Neptune. In some cases, yes, Pisces' bad habits such as indolence and lethargy, escapism, may rub off on other people and may lead others to the road to ruin. But in many other instances, Pisces can also actually be very compassionate and altruistic. They often express self sacrifice to others and will help those in need as opposed to bleeding them for things which can be synonymous with toxic people. Pisces, sadly though, they can actually be on the receiving end of someone that is toxic due to their gullibility and being exploited by others. Pisces can be very deceptive and duplicitous, but they are often victimized by that trait in others as well. And Pisces does need to be careful though, because given their impressionability, they could easily wind up mimicking the behavior of other people, which could include those that are toxic. Now, the moment of truth, I do believe, I'm going to go with Scorpio. I think unequivocally is the most toxic zodiac sign. They are, they may have many of the characteristics that are typical in a toxic person. A very negative Scorpio, though, can be very constantly, bitter and angry, and seldom are really, jocular and jovial, at least consistently. And Scorpio, sadly, can be very manipulative and cunning when they want something. This can include emotional manipulation, which may act inappropriately toward you and somehow convince you that you were the one at fault in a situation, and even if you weren't. I mean, uh, they can also, and the thing about it is, the thing about Scorpio is they can do things. Not just act inappropriately toward you. They could, again, convince you you're the one at fault. I had a woman that was prominent in my life at one time, and she has a Scorpio sun sign, uh, and she would constantly bleed her parents for money. And I think they constantly gave in to her. The reason they did this was largely attributed to the fact that they felt that she may disown them if her needs were not met. And Scorpio can frequently also bully somebody without physically doing so. Um, they toxic people frequently revel in someone else's suffering, their tribulation, and adversity that they face. And Scorpio, I believe, also on average is the most sadistic of the zodiac signs. They toxic people are often, they could be notorious for making others feel uneasy when they are in close proximity to them. Now, even if Scorpio is not manifesting negative energy, they can actually make others feel uncomfortable around them because due to the overwhelming aura that they do have, and can be very imposing and intimidating. Now, their penetrating glare or gaze certainly doesn't help matters. It's hard for others to really be oblivious to that. Um, but the thing about it is, you could only imagine what could happen when you take Scorpio that is difficult or negative, and how others may actually feel around that person. Scorpio is also the sign associated with shared resources, and Scorpio, I mean, their perception of shared resources in some cases may be different than what one may generally presume. Uh, Scorpio is also the sign of death. They may bleed you to death, figuratively speaking, until your resources are completely annihilated and dissipated. Scorpio is also the sign associated with toxins because Pluto rules them. Pluto governs toxins. Now, and Scorpio can often frequently find the weakness in a person and use it against them. And they can do this. This can include berating a person, saying derogatory things to the person, and that's associated with their weakness and what they're self-conscious about. If Scorpio can often find somebody, for example, that has a bad temper, even if that person is carefully suppressing it or hiding it, and bring it out in the person because they know they can spot that weakness and they can bring that out better than anybody else, sadly. And the thing about it is they can often add insult to abject misery, in someone's life, sadly, because that's what toxic people will frequently do. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that. I'm back. But anyway, yeah, as far as Scorpio goes, they just have that ability to see that negative in a person, and they will exploit it. They will often use that against them, and that could be a trait that can be synonymous with toxic people. And the thing is, that's pretty much it, people. And anyway, until next time, people, Edwin Leonard saying, stay well.